Hey everyone, I'm really excited to bring you a video on Alchemix today. Now, Alchemix is a really innovative project in the DeFi space, and I'm really excited about what they're doing personally, so I can't wait to share that with you all today. But before we get into that, I do want to show you we have a DeFi Innovation Telegram here. So basically, anyone that wants can become a community member. We basically talk about different protocols, yield farms, innovation in DeFi, etc. And you can see yesterday, I actually sent out a poll of what people wanted to see next for a video, and they landed on Alchemix, so that's the video I'm filming. If you want to participate in that poll or just participate in the chat in general, feel free to click the link in the description, which will link you to this chat. So let's jump right into the Alchemix protocol. Now, simply put, Alchemix is basically a protocol that allows you to deposit collateral and then take out a loan that automatically repays itself. Now, as I walk you through the protocol a bit more, I think this will become a little bit easier to understand, so bear with me. So if we move over to the vault here, you can see an example of how this would work in practice. So the first step would be to deposit DAI. DAI is a stablecoin pegged to the US dollar, so let's say you deposit $100. So after you've deposited $100, you can now borrow up to 50% of the value of your collateral. So if you deposit $100, you can now borrow 50. Now, over time, that $50 that you borrowed will actually be paid down based on the interest that the $100 you deposited earns. So currently, that's done through the Yearn protocol, and you can see here that Alchemix APY is about 29%. So that means if you put in $100, you're earning about $30 of interest in a year at this point in time. So at any point, you could obviously repay your entire loan, or you could liquidate it if you have to do that as well too. One thing that's important to note, though, is that although you're depositing DAI, you're receiving their synthetic stablecoin back called ALUSD or ALUSD. Now, this can be treated as basically the same as DAI, and you can see here that through Curve, you could trade about 1 million ALUSD to about 1 million DAI. So they're basically the same here, but just something to note if you're pretty risk adverse. Now, lastly, we have the farm tab. So this is if you want to yield farm through Alchemix. Now, all of these APRs that you see are basically going to be based on how much liquidity is in each pool. So how much of a share of this pool do you own if you deposit liquidity? And then also the Alchemix price, or the ALCX token. So before you decide to yield farm, I think one of the most important things is to really do some research on the Alchemix token itself and see if you think that token's price will increase. Now, right now, basically, this token is just a governance token, so it doesn't collect fees from the protocol yet. Those would have to be turned on through governance. But this would just allow you to have some type of control or ownership over the protocol in the future. Now, as part of your research into the Alchemix token and where you think the price will go, I'd recommend looking at some comparables. One example would be the Compound token, which you can see has a market cap of about 2.3 billion currently, and then a fully diluted valuation of 4.6 billion. So that would mean that Alchemix and Compound basically have a very similar fully diluted valuation. Now, of course, the current circulating market cap is much higher for Compound, but you can kind of use this to get a sense of how the market's viewing Alchemix, and then you can make your own determination if you think Alchemix will outperform or underperform the market's expectations. You can also look at the Aave protocol's valuation. So you can see the current market cap is 4.5 billion and the fully diluted valuation is 5.8 billion. So this clearly has a bit of a higher valuation than Alchemix. And that inherently makes sense because really Aave is seeing a ton of volume in DeFi right now. So these are all factors to consider if you're trying to value Alchemix and decide if you should participate in yield farming. So I'd recommend you think a little bit carefully about where you think the future of the Alchemix token is headed, whether you think that price will go up or down. I will say there's a ton of buzz about Alchemix right now, which could mean that it could be overvalued. Obviously, it's impossible to time the markets or predict that. But generally, when something has a lot of hype or buzz around it, the price could be inflated. But again, who knows? We'll see what the future brings for Alchemix. They are doing some innovative stuff in this space, so I do think they have a bright future ahead. So you can see here are the four pools. The first is the Alchemix ETH pool on SushiSwap. Next is the ALUSD Curve pool. So I showed you the Curve interface before, and you'd basically just be staking that Curve stablecoin. Next is the ALCX pool. So you would just be single staking the governance token. And lastly is the ALUSD pool. So you'd be single staking that ALUSD stablecoin. Now, if you do decide to stake with the highest APR option, which is the ALCX ETH option, I would highly recommend that you use a tool called Zapper to provide liquidity. So the benefit of Zapper is that you don't actually have to purchase ETH and ALCX and hold an equal value of both. You can simply just hold ETH or ALCX or really any other token, and automatically convert that to the ETH ALCX LP tokens. So you can see here, if I wanted to submit 10 ETH or about $20,000, I would automatically get about 5.09 SushiSwap LP tokens back. This just makes the process a lot easier and simpler. I'm not too sure if it's gas efficient, but you're probably only talking about a few dollars difference if you were to do this manually. So if you are looking to yield farm this, provide liquidity, or take out a loan, I did find a really interesting strategy to maximize your yield on DAI. I put together a spreadsheet that I'll share in the description below, but I want to walk you through how it works. So in this strategy, I'm assuming that you deposit $20,000 of DAI into Alchemix, and you basically take out a $10,000 loan with that $20,000. So you don't have to worry about being liquidated because this process is going to all happen automatically, which is great. So with that $10,000 of ALUSD that you just received as a loan, you now have two options here that are very similar. So you could either stake that in the Curve pool, or you could just stake that in Alchemix's ALUSD single asset pool. Now in doing that, that $10,000 loan would now be receiving about 74% APR. And you can see those rewards are on the left here. So that's about $616 a month. And if you compound that, you can see the value after 1 year would equal $10,500. So to compound that, you'd basically be selling off the Alchemix token that you received as a reward, selling that for ALUSD, and then adding that right back into the stable coin pool. And you'd only have to do that every month. Now, assuming you did this for a year, it would be really interesting to see what happened, because you would actually be able to fully pay off your loan, and you'd have a large amount of interest on top of that. So you can see here, if I calculate the value after 1 year, this is full profit. That's $33,700 on a $20,000 deposit. Now we would reach this by, we basically add up the deposit value, so that's the 20,000. We add up the compounded rewards and then the deposit returns. And keep in mind, these deposit returns are automatically already paying off your loan value. So you would simply have to pay only another $3,400 to get out of that loan. And therefore you would have a net of $33,700 of profit. And that comes out to a 68% APR on your stablecoins, which is pretty phenomenal and something you can't find anywhere else besides DeFi. So you might be asking yourself, why would I want a 68% APR when I could just single stake ALUSD and receive that 74%? So the difference here is that when you're ALUSD staking, you're receiving all of your rewards in Alchemix, or the ALCX token. Now, as I mentioned before, this token is volatile and it's really hard to price that out, and so the APR will fluctuate. Now you have to remember, with the strategy I'm listing out, that $20,000 initial deposit is earning a fairly stable yield because the protocol is simply lending out DAI, and then it's paying down your loan with more DAI. So this is a nice way to diversify and basically combine Alchemix rewards and then simple DAI rewards. So although the APR is just slightly lower, you're really taking on a lot less risk if you follow this strategy. So I think that's a pretty good rundown of Alchemix and then how or why you should get involved. Of course, with every disclaimer, this isn't investment advice. I really recommend you do your own research. I'll link all the docs below. You can see they have docs here on Gitbook. That would be great to read through all of that yourself. I'd also recommend you check out their governance forum and just see how active the community is. And then you can check out their Discord as well, just to see what the community is like there. So thank you all so much for watching. Definitely check out the link to the Telegram channel below. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, the link is below as well. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.